to be a focus for the centralization of global power, like that world government on that earlier slide. The sections in that target-type symbol of the United Nations, there's 33. Just happens to be 33 degrees of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And it's kind of nicely framed, isn't it, with those leaves. I wonder where that came from. Oh, yes, I remember now. It's a Freemasonic symbol, again, transferred to the United Nations. These symbols of these various levels of control, the European Union has 12 stars in a circle, etc. They're all esoteric symbols. Now this, I guess of everything I've said so far, these next few minutes are going to be the most important, because I'm talking about the most powerful means of mass manipulation which has been played, this card, for thousands of years, and we're still falling for it. And it is this more than anything that's advanced this agenda to centralization of global power. I call it problem, reaction, solution. It works like this. You want to bring something in here, centralization of power, more power for the police, more power for security agencies, whatever, and you know that if you do it openly and honestly, there's going to be a reaction against it. We're not having this. This is a global fascist state. Go away. We're not standing for this. This is outrageous. That's what you're going to get if you do it openly. So you don't. What you do is you create a problem here. Could be society breaking down, so there is more crime, so people get in fear of being mugged and being burgled. Could be war, it could be a terrorist bomb, an economic collapse, whatever. And you create a problem, but you get someone else to be blamed for it. You get a Lee Harvey Oswald, you get these patsies, as they call them in America, who are blamed for events that they weren't involved in. You then get the people in general, by the way that you report your problem, to react by demanding you do something. This can't go on, do something. What are they going to do about it? And at that point, those who've covertly created the problem and got that reaction, something must be done, then openly offer the solutions to the problems they have themselves created. Problem, reaction, solution. Who benefited from the Oklahoma bomb? Not the people of Oklahoma, not the people who died and lost children and relatives in that bomb. One group of people and one group of people only benefited from Oklahoma, anyone who wanted to centralize power even further in America. Because anti-terrorism bills went through Congress that took away basic freedoms from Americans purely and only because of that bomb. And as independent bomb experts and explosive experts have said, that fuel fertilizer device in the Ryder truck could not possibly have done that damage. It had to be done by high-tech devices on some of the pillars inside the building. So problem, reaction, solution is the classic means of advancing this agenda and getting the population to demand you do it, even though they don't know the agenda exists. And the Second World War, like the First World War, were global examples of this. As I've shown in my books like And the Truth Shall Set You Free and The Biggest Secret, come to that, the Second World War was the creation of a brotherhood, a global elite, that was funding all sides, that had control of the leaders of all sides, and just played them off against each other to create a war, a problem, which then had a solution. As again, myself and many other researchers have shown, Soviet communism was funded from Wall Street and London. The Nazis were funded from Wall Street and London, through the Bank of England and through the German subsidiaries of American and British multinational corporations, not least the Rockefeller Standard Oil. The front men of the war were Joseph Stalin in Russia, frontman for this brotherhood. You had Winston Churchill in England, whose image left us by conventional history is an absolute farce. This guy was a man of war, among many other things. In America, you had one of the classic frontmen of the 20th century for this brotherhood, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, comes from one of the elite aristocratic French bloodlines. In Germany, you had Adolf Hitler, who was put in there by a network of secret societies, the Thule Society, the Vril Society, the Edelweiss Society, that locked into this global brotherhood. And they were funded by American loans and in the way that I've just talked about. So you create two sides. Incidentally, again, sun cycles, numerology, certain years, certain things happen. You look at 1933. 1933, the number of things that happened in that year, that's when the pyramid and all-seeing eye went on the dollar bill. That's when Roosevelt stole the gold from the American people. That's when Hitler came to power. That's when Roosevelt came to power. No accident, all by design. And then you get two sides and you play them off against each other in a war. And from the war, at the end of the Second World War, in such a few years, the human race was mentally, physically, emotionally, and mentally wiped, exhausted. And in that mode, we are putty in the hands. What did people say? This can't go on. Something must be done. What are they going to do about it? What do they do about it? The United Nations, European Union, centralization of power, then we won't have another war. As I've shown in my books, documents exist that show that the Second World War was planned as the First World War was ending, probably before that. And if anyone thinks that it's not possible for a few to control the world, you're looking at it. How many people in Britain, America, Germany, Australia, South Africa, France, all these different countries, how many of those people wanted to go to war in the First World War? Hardly any of them. They want to be at home with their families, seeing their kids grow up. So why were they there? They were there because the pyramid structure and the hierarchy in this country persuaded its population they had to fight the people in this country. The little hierarchy in this country persuaded their population they had to fight this country, and these two hierarchies locked into one hierarchy, which was pulling strings of all sides. And there was a song in the 60s by a guy called Donovan, sang by a guy called Donovan, which went like this, which sums up where we're at with this. It went, he's 5'2" and he's 6'4". He fights with missiles and with spears. He's all of 31 and he's only 17. He's been a soldier for 1,000 years. He's a Catholic, a Hindu, an atheist, a Jain, a Buddhist and a Baptist and a Jew. And he knows he shouldn't kill, and he knows he always will. Killing for me, my friend, and me for you. And he's fighting for Canada, he's fighting for France, he's fighting for the USA. And he's fighting for the Russians, and he's fighting for Japan. And he thinks we'll put an end to war this way. And he's fighting for democracy, he's fighting for the Reds. He says it's for the peace of all. He's the one who must decide who's to live and who's to die, and he never sees the writing on the wall. But without him, how could Hitler have condemned him at Laval? Without him, Caesar would have stood alone. He's the one who gives his body as a weapon of the war, and without him, all this killing can't go on. He's the universal soldier, and he really is to blame. His orders come from far away no more. They come from here and there and you and me, and brothers and sisters, can't you see? This is not the way we put the end to war. And that sums up a very simple truth. When we stop playing the game, there is no game. The few can only control the world and manipulate wars if we fall for it, because we fight them and they start them. And when they've started them and we fought them, they recreate the world in the image that they want. So we went from global elite controlling both sides, conflict, United Nations, European Union, in both world wars. Power was in far fewer hands at the end of the war than it was at the start, and that was the reason for the war. Another problem, reaction, solution, which I'll talk briefly about, that is going to be played in the next few years, it would look like, maybe even sooner than that, is the idea there's some extraterrestrial invasion. These so-called flying saucers have been around for a long time. They're flown by humans. Been around for a long time. It's a very straightforward technology. But if you, going back to that knowledge, ignorance pyramid at the start, if you keep people in ignorance of what's possible, when they see things flying around that they don't believe humans can create, then they think extraterrestrial. And there's a scam being played here in which, while these extraterrestrial created and connected bloodlines have been running the world and still are all these thousands of years, that we're going to be persuaded that there's some extraterrestrial invasion